Oficinas regionales de PI y tecnología. Loreto Bresky, Instituto Nacional de la Propiedad Intelectual, INAPI Chile. Fabiola Varela, Directora de Propiedad Intelectual del Registro Nacional, Costa Rica. Cláudio Vilar Furtado, Instituto Nacional de la Propiedad Intelectual, INPI Brasil. Andrea Di Carlo, Director Ejecutivo Adjunto de la Oficina de Propiedad Intelectual de la Unión Europea, EUIPO, España. William Meredith, OMPI, Suiza. Moderadora, Elisabeth Siemsen do Amaral, Presidente de ASIPI, Brasil.
I would like to introduce Mrs. Loreto Bresky, also Fabiola Varela, Director of the IP Registry of Costa Rica, Andrea Di Carlo, Executive Director of the IP Office of the European Union, Mr. Celso Cha, responsible for Brazil. He represents his president, Mr. Cláudio Furtado. Mr. William Meredith, Director of the Company Solutions of the IP Office at the WIPO. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. It is a pleasure this afternoon to facilitate such an important topic in the members of our association. We have different WIPO or representatives and also representatives from Brazil, Chile, and Costa Rica, very important offices within Latin America. Unfortunately, the EU IPO cannot attend the meeting today. This year was a huge challenge. Many of us needed to innovate in our companies to face the new reality of the COVID pandemic. A few months after the first health measures and after the lockdown as adopted by the different countries, we have seen that the use of different technologies has increased significantly. A survey conducted by McKinsey found that a short time after the declaration of the World Health situation, the communication channels to interact with consumers and suppliers accelerated as it would have done in 3 or 4 years. And the supply of digital solutions have increased as if they had in 7 years of regular years. Therefore, within this is a time of solidarity, and companies from different areas have adapted their production plans in order to manufacture essential items that were scarce in the market. Although this acceleration in adopting new digital technologies has led to corporate benefits, in some cases, even fixed costs have decreased, but companies have had to make huge investments in the technological department. Therefore, given the work of our national delegates, we have seen that not all regional IP offices were technologically prepared to ensure the continuity of services during the pandemic. Maybe because they didn't have enough resources or because they hadn't raised people's awareness of the need to have the necessary technology. We have also seen that some offices have found it difficult to adapt technologically because of lack of specialized proposals or courses in the area of IP that would enable them to solve the problem quickly and economically. Therefore, the aim of this panel is to discuss which was the situation from a technological perspective, and also what some offices have done to face the pandemic, which strategies they have implemented to ensure service continuity, and what they aim to do in the future. It will also be very interesting to see what the exchange of information was like among the different regional IP offices, and how this solidarity and joint work cycle can continue and increase in the future in order to strengthen the protection of IP rights. In the panel, we will hear about the experience of WIPO members and the regional OMP institutions as well that provide support to national offices, and that also have been working for a long time to provide digital services. For instance, the different services we have been providing. The panel will also discuss the experience of Latin American region, Brazil, Chile, and Costa Rica. As we have several presenters, I would like to introduce each one of them before the presentations. At the end, we will have some time for a Q&A session. Having said this, I would like to introduce our first presenter, Loreto Bresky. She is a National Director of the Director General of the National Institute of Industrial Property of Chile. She has been so since 2019. Before that, she worked in the private sector in several major companies in Chile, Alexandria Abogados, for instance, and Amaral y Salisniak. She's an attorney, graduated from the Chilean University, and she has a degree in compliance and capital markets. She was the ambassador for IP at the ICC, and also a member of several IP international organizations, such as the AIPPI, INTA, and ASIPI. She has played an active role in IP. She from 2004 and 2019. She has been a consultant for the Chile Mujeres Foundation and a member of the Women Committee of the Chilean Bar Association, where she has also acted as a judge of ethics. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Loreto Bresky. Thank you, Elisabeth, for the presentation. Let's see if I can actually share my screen. Please let me know if you can see the slides. Is that okay? Good. Okay, let's begin then. Good morning, everyone who's participating in the panel. I would like to thank the steering committee of ASIPI steering committee. I have participated in some panels before. I was a member of ASIPI as well, but today it's different because ASIPI is a very flexible institution. Therefore, they are now holding this event digitally, and it's a digital era. Therefore, given our digital position, we need ever-going evolution regarding the services provided to citizens so that we can guarantee not just service continuity, which has been affected with the health situation, but also excellent management and the adaptability that the digital era requires. At INAPI, 10 years ago, we started working on digital technology, not just for recording procedures, but also for personal administration and user service as well. As you can see here, INAPI kept working despite social and health barriers that the country has had to face. The key project behind this modernization was INAPI's implementation of the IP management system, IPAS, developed by UNPI. I'm sure that William will tell us a bit more about the project. This project was developed by UNPI in 2012. It started working with the different databases and at INAPI as well, and also regarding modeling business processes that focused on patents, which we needed to work on. And at the same, we needed to integrate the IPAS system with other systems. This was successfully implemented and it replaced an obsolete platform for INAPI. And this IPAS IPAS system allowed us to implement an electronic document management system. This is called IPAS EDMS, which allowed us to electronically manage different files and resources. So all the documents that enter INAPI are digitally managed. Examiners and administrative staff can review the document on the digital platform. This makes processes faster. We can also work in physical spaces that other than the offices. Therefore, now we have a paperless procedure, and it has made it possible to have different and more modern processes. For instance, teleworking. INAPI was the first institution to implement teleworking. Something like some years ago, it was 10%. Now it is 35%. And this has helped the whole organization to join this distance working exceptional situation in March. Now we are implementing the advanced digital signature, and it actually improves the reliability of the documents received by INAPI. This project was essential for the paperless office. In January 2018, after implementing the paperless project, workflows were adjusted as well as the IPA system in order to allow for different paperless procedures. Therefore, now we do not need a backup paper file. As I have told you what the situation was like, we had already included some technological tools, and they have enabled us to provide continuous services during the pandemic, not just applications or different appeals, etc. We have been able to keep the same procedure time frames. We have the same response times as we did before the pandemic. So, I will tell you a bit about this now. As we are talking about technological tools, I would like to highlight that these platforms on the slide have allowed us to actually comply with international standards. This has allowed us to improve the exchange of information among different international IP platforms. We also work with WIPO. We have included same view and other tools that they might explain later on. They have been very useful for Chilean users. A tool we used to have to work internally, it's a detector of similar images. This is an AI tool within INAPI. In March, actually, we held an activity in Montevideo, an ASIPI activity, and I talked about this there. It's great to have AI within our processes. This was created by the School of Science and Maths from the University of Chile, and actually they helped us develop and improve this tool. It allows users to work with text and image applications, and we can compare the information with our database, what we have in our database, in order to improve search processes and to make the necessary remarks.
Okay, here in this scenario I just mentioned, that was a situation before the pandemic. Now, some things we implemented during the pandemic. As stated on the 18th March, 100% of the organization went to telework, distance work. And the last item, all the officials had VPN already. And it wasn't because we had known, because nobody projected this. It was a very catastrophic scenario. We all had to lock down and abandon the office. INAPI in Chile was undergoing a lot of social protests in the country, and the area had been very attacked and impacted. And we thought there could be a stronger wave in the area and that eventually we would have to leave the building. That is why we installed VPN to all officials so they could work with the same tools mentioned before and continue proceeding from the household. They did distance work, and this was very useful. But other improvements we had starting at the end of April, May, were the implementation of payments online. So it wasn't necessary to go to the bank proper. We could pay directly and thus prevent mobility of users in our system that had to abandon the household because we were under lockdown. Banking card credits were also implemented for payments in the different offices, and some presentations were simplified. About proxies, this is a headache for many users. I really understand it. Recently, I was on the other side of the counter, so I was clear we had to approach this, and we had to solve this matter. Both the proxies and the founding documents without the advanced digital signature may currently be authenticated through a single code in our country or the INAPI code under the responsibility of the person calling it. These are some of the measures we have adopted, among other activities. Reports of technical surveillance were extremely important for the development for Made in Chile. Public domain reports together with Brazil and Costa Rica. Both are members of Prosur and conducted public domain reports to face a technology committee and related with COVID-19, face masks and others. At first, some deadlines were extended so that the users could have time enough to adapt to the needs of this new modality we had at all levels. Thanks to the technology measures implemented in this vocation of becoming an office adapted to the needs of the 21st century, 100% online, we saw this significant increase of brand registries. This has occurred in Chile on several occasions. We have mentioned this when we have seen this sort of increase in brand registries. Single brands in Chile increased 62%. The total income is then higher from the start of the onset of measurements in 2013, and we have 48,000 requests by October this year. And this has been conducted thanks to the technology tools because we are 100% online. This means that the online presentation was 49.9% with minimum face-to-face attendance in a very controlled manner with an annual accumulated figure of 98%. All the tools to access the different platforms allowing us to work remotely, online, functioned with distance work of different levels. Of course, there was a lot of commitment and resilience because we were all facing a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, but everything has continued to work. We have made progress at operational level in the maintenance of the times without leaving aside our strategic plan. And it's very important for the office to face new challenges, taking into account the health crisis and the economic crisis occurring in our different countries. Therefore, we must continue with our agenda leading us to support all those small and medium-sized enterprises that need us. And we also wanted to discuss the future. Here, some tools in artificial intelligence we are analyzing in order to include them as new challenges. We have this for the patent office to facilitate the process and its quality data analysis, to contribute in decision making at public level. A unit of data was generated this year, and we have a report on patentability. User care. Well, I have very little time left, so I'll go fast. So INAPI, some years ago, implemented public access to its databases for patentability. Any user today may access to see the digital files and the development of the brands and the different applications once the patents have been published, of course. But we also have public access to data. A search for patents was implemented, facilitating access to all data from requests made by people, individuals, institutions, with the possibility of downloading this with the results obtained. And this is also going to be implemented in 2021 for Mac. And here we have a repository of files. We're working on this in XML format. INAPI has digitized all the files, but in PDF with optical recognition of information of documents and databases that serve as a basis for our current online functioning. And we want to include activities that allow to have a file repository in XML format, allowing us searches in text, to have full text research and share this data with other entities, making the data available for processing so we can have AI developments with them. Each of these stages will ensure the transparency but also privacy of sensitive data. And these functions will allow new developments in such a way that we can strengthen the relationship between industrial property and the company, encouraging the use of industrial property and stimulating innovation in Chile. Innovation that, as an office, we must drive. Our office must constantly support the users and entrepreneurs to use this intensely through training, allowing IP to drive the necessary reactivation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Loreto, for your very clarifying presentation. Now we will continue with our next speaker, Fabiola Varela, who works in Costa Rica. She has a degree in law and is a public notary at the University of Costa Rica and has specialized in IP. She has worked 12 years for the National Registry. Before, she held the position of Deputy Director of the Registry Services Directorate 5 years, and she currently holds the position of General Director of the National Registry of the Republic of Costa Rica during the 2018-2021 administration. She's the first woman to occupy this position as Director General since the creation of the National Registry. The floor is yours, Mrs. Varela. Good morning, good afternoon for those who are in different places. It's a true honor for me to participate for the first time in this meeting, not only because it's online, because this has been managed by ASIPI. It's a really very excellent chance to share the role of our IP office in our country. I'm going to share my screen now.
Para el Registro Nacional de Costa
For the National Registry in Costa Rica, it has been a real challenge to face the pandemic, and gradually, without attempting to guess the future, we gradually implemented in our National Registry different things. Some years ago, we had started with a digitalization process of our registry. And I must add that the National Costa Rica Registry includes 7 major registries, one of which corresponds to IP. This year in particular, we consolidated it, gathering copyright and industrial property. So we present it to the world and the user as an IP registry. Within the labor sphere, we have the registry of real estate, and all these public registries have been digitized. So this wasn't such a radical change in paradigm because we had already progressed in many of the necessary issues to deal with the pandemic. At present, in the IP registry, we have 77 officials. In the whole national registry, we are 1,084 individuals. With all these people, particularly in the IP registry, before COVID, we had a percentage of people working at a distance, and that was 10%. We had people working at a distance with the different necessary technological tools as IPM connections and access to online systems, particularly the people who examine patents. We have 5 of these in the plant, 3 women, 2 men, and they are specialized, for example, in pharmaceuticals, chemistry, industrial engineering. Different tests are done at industrial level and so on. Prior to COVID, the files were 100% digitized. As mentioned, we began this task of digitalization some time ago and also worked with the IPAS platform system that has been granted by WIPO to the offices that have requested it since 2008. At regional level, we were one of the first offices to use the system. Since then, we have been working closely together with WIPO to gradually incorporate the necessary updates so that the system is increasingly agile. Prior to COVID, we had first requests face-to-face only. We did a council on file management online, and in preventions and resources, this could be answered via email or fax. Prior to COVID, we also had this possibility of payment online. This system has been managed since 2006. The users of the different registries, not only IP, may pay our rates via a virtual platform So this has paved the way for new things. We had already been using the Behind View tool, and since 2006, we have managed to make users have our certifications through the online National Registry portal. And this will be launched on the first week of January because we have renewed it. We wanted to have the best navigation standards, very user-friendly, including tools for disabled people. Similarly, text that may be modified so it can be heard in audio, and we have different colors so that people with visual disabilities to access our service. So the issue is digital certification of services that we've had for some years in our national registry, and gradually we have introduced different products.
During the COVID pandemic, we had the first case on the 6th of March in our country. That was when we managed to implement a new system for the IP registry called legal software. The system was implemented. It was developed internally by us with registry staff in order to comply with a 2012 decree. It was issued as Costa Rica is part of a TLC within the United States and TLA, and actually they asked us to prevent piracy regarding software. We needed to guarantee the public entities are using duly filed registry software. Therefore, we need to guarantee this use. Public entities, therefore, can have a better access to the platform. They can register their own software, etc., so that we can check that all the internally used programs have the necessary licenses for such uses. This was launched on the 5th of March and it has been very well received by public entities because we need to use the system to guarantee compliance with the decree, and also it has been welcomed by people from the American Embassy in Costa Rica because they had been insisting on the need to have this platform for public entities. Finally, it was one of the outstanding issues we had when they evaluated us in the 3.0 platform, because Costa Rica had been for many years in the blacklist of countries that didn't have the necessary protections for IP and copyright. When the pandemic started, we began to take our employees and they started teleworking. Therefore, 95% of them started working as teleworkers. The idea was to continue helping users, to keep some people in person to help users. In September of 2020, we successfully implemented the WIPO file system. It's a tool provided by WIPO. We're the first Latin American country to implement it. It allows us to have this online presentation. It becomes an information repository for all IP agents. It's a system as visualized by WIPO to do this. In the country, we implemented it with the use of the advanced digital signature in order to use it so that not just IP agents can use it, but also other users that would like to file a request for a trademark or something like that. We had the implementation phase. And in this first stage, we held a training session for 80 IP experts. They were very happy to have this sort of repository because the idea is someone can make an application and users can actually internally verify everything on the online platform. As I was saying, it's not as easy as just getting an online file. It's actually a presentation that includes all the necessary security measures so that the system can guarantee the trademark filing. We also have all the necessary information about fee payment, etc. It's like having a live virtual file that we can verify from anywhere. And this is possible for the user and the IP agent. It's a system that is available 24/7. It has no time restraints as do physical users. And actually, we implemented the platform and we received 1,060 requests, new and renewal documents as well. The idea is to also include the possibility to file a patent application, to acknowledge this receipt, and to successfully complete a patent registration. As this is a document repository, the idea is to be able to trace documents, to see which documents the applicant has, when it goes to the next session, when it is published, etc. And I'm sure I will not go into detail because I'm sure you know the process much better than myself. Therefore, the IP agents have found this very useful, because by clicking on one thing, they can actually check the status of their applications. Regarding patents, we will be implementing this section in January 2021. This COVID status, let's say, has actually encouraged us to implement online training sessions. Why encouraged us? Because although we did have the technological tools before, we felt very limited given the scope, or we didn't know if people were going to understand these sessions. But experience has told us that the scope is huge. We have organized 3 webinars on basic IP concepts, and we have included librarians, teachers, etc. In October and November, we held 3 sessions, and we reached approximately 600 people. This means that knowledge is not captive anymore. We have an in-person meeting. We have, I don't know, 20 people, but digitally we don't have this limitation. Therefore, technology has helped us expand IP knowledge to more people. What is a post-COVID situation that we expect? We expect to continue teleworking. This is here to stay. Technological tools have shown us that we can do this, and efficiently as well. Our deadlines regarding marks and other signs, we have always adhered to the regulation. Which is 6 working days, but now the time frame is 4.5 working days, and users have found this very useful. We know that all the publication proceedings, etc., actually make some processes longer, but we're respecting time frames very closely. Regarding patents, I believe that most patents will be granted in 2.5 years' time. We need to remember that we are part of the PCT and other treaties that in the subject. We won't reach the 100% of teleworkers because we keep offices open to the public. In Costa Rica, we have worked through the pandemic with less restrictions than in other countries. We were closed for 2 weeks only in this year. These were full lockdowns, and in this case, we had 100% of teleworking. But after that, we have combined both modalities. We have complied with the necessary protocols. We have invested in barriers, in plastic or glass barriers that would provide the necessary health conditions. And we have also used the necessary hygiene and health devices in order to guarantee the health of our employees and users that still come in person to the offices. The idea is to reach 100% of digitalization in our services. We still need to work so that different queries and trademark similarity, etc., can be done online. And this is our next big step. We will continue holding digital training sessions, and we will include more people as well. We are reaching several SMEs. 15 days ago, we held a webinar, and we hosted the webinar. Actually, it was organized by WIPO for Central American countries. It was a very successful event. We had around 150 people connected, and they represented small and medium-sized companies. We also have the technological attention centers. We have 3 of these centers in public universities and 1 in the National Registry. We have also developed training sessions, and we aim to continue working digitally. We also want to include students, which is this huge area that we still need to cater to as a national registry, because in the last few years we have been having this role of creating professionals in the areas of IT, video games, biomedical devices. And I'm sure that students, when they're about to graduate and they start to write their dissertations, etc., they are actually hired by transnational companies that can provide jobs, and they end up not protecting IP. So therefore, this is something we still have to do as public servants and as protectors of IP rights. So this is my presentation. I must say that we have been able to advance technologically because we have had the help of WIPO. They have provided us with these tools, and we have worked jointly with them, as we understand that it provides us with a huge possibility to reach users. And we can get closer to them, and we can actually create resources, because everyone is saving here, the state, users, and all of this leads to better revenues for the country. Thank you again for the opportunity of sharing what my country is doing regarding helping people reach IP. Thank you, Fabiola, for sharing with us this very important information regarding the Costa Rica IP office. Now we have our next presenter, Mr. Celso Chao. He's responsible for the IP department in Brazil. And right now he's representing his president, Cláudio Vilar Furtado. I will mention your qualifications now.
Of Rio de Janeiro, having completed an MBA from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Strategic Information Management and Advanced Project Management, in addition to the master degree from the Fluminense Federal University in Computer Science. He joined the INPI in 2013. Please, Celso, continue. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Elisabeth. Good morning, everyone. I thank you for this opportunity. And I apologize for trying to speak in English, because I think you would suffer much more if I tried to talk in Spanish. Sorry. INPI Brazil's president, Dr. Cláudio Furtado, thanks for this opportunity to share and interact with important members of the world IP system. We always seek to adapt to existing restrictions in our environment here in Brazil, but without losing sight of the need for continuous improvements. We use a lot of creativity and partnerships with other institutions to guide the necessary evolution. INPI sought to adapt quickly to the immediate need to implement teleworking in view to the advancement of the COVID pandemic. Taking advantage of the knowledge already acquired and used in the home office for a part of the INPI researchers, we advanced quickly and significantly in the scale of the solution. This moment also brought some changes in strategies, accelerating the search for redundancy and disaster recovery solutions, improvement in information security controls, in addition to solutions for shared remote work. We have remote offices spread over several cities in the Brazil territory, with a view to capillarity in the provision of services, all of which are connected on the same computer network at the INPI headquarters in Rio de Janeiro. The efficiency and the processes was little affected because we were able to undertake the remote allocation of all servers in a short time, and which quickly managed to establish a good interaction with the new remote perspective. I also believe that the work shared with other organizations in the global IP environment has been greatly increased, allowing for quick and fruitful meetings, as we are experiencing right now. At the INPI Brazil, we have a very important HR restriction. And this has been a subject that has been gaining the institution's management agenda. We have achieved relevant recent success with infrastructure solutions. Currently, the services provided to citizens are entirely web digital, and the use of paper forms is no longer necessary. We offer a follow-up for the applicants of their processes over the internet, in addition to the Gazette, weekly Gazette, offered in different formats, in PDF and also in XML. We continue using the iPass system of WIPO for brands, and we'll move forward in the migration of industrial design. Also think about the Hague Agreement and geographical indication. And in trademarks, we're using iPass for a long time. I think it's since 2012 or 13. We count a lot with the support of WIPO in this process of industrial design and geographic indication. And at this point, we thank Mr. Meredith in the evolution of this project. Some important ongoing projects aim to modernize the ICT area in all aspects. Organizational structure, processes, controls, technological architecture, and so on. We are aiming to move the ICT area in another platform. Among all our investments priorities for 2021, we highlight the need for security evolution with disaster recovery solutions, the expanded use of AI in the INPI processes, like priority search, XMQ control by order area, trademarks, images, and industrial design also, and formal exam, the first step of the exam of the patents. We're looking to improve all the process, following all the technologies that we have now being offered by the market to achieve a very profitable and digital institute in the next few years. This is all we have prepared for now, but we are able to receive all the questions and to answer all the questions of the audience. Okay, thank you.
Perdón.
Excuse me.
For your presentation. And now we are going to our next panelist. Nuestro próximo expositor es
Our next speaker is Andrea Dicardo from WIPO. He is from Italy. He was appointed Executive Director, CEO at the European Union Intellectual Property Office by the Council of the European Union in 2019. Previously, he was part of different offices and contributed to design and implementation of different successful initiatives conducted by the office recently, such as complete digitalization of services offered to WIPO users, remodeling and collaboration with the national regional IP offices in the EU via the Cooperation Fund and the Convergence Program, the deployment of EU-funded projects to enhance IP protection in third countries, and the establishment and development of the European Observatory on Infringements of IP Rights. Mr. Di Carlo is a graduate in law from Perugia University and holds an LM in IP law and a master's degree in business administration. The floor is yours, Mr. Di Carlo.
Ahora sí.
Can you hear me now? Good, thank you. Well, I first thank ASIPI on behalf of our office for inviting us, allowing us to introduce our situation during the pandemic and our future plans. Now, I will speak in Spanish, although my presentation is in English, because I think it's nice for the Spanish-speaking people. So excuse me if I make some mistakes, but I think it's worthwhile. First, I would like to refer briefly to our pre-COVID situation to help to understand why it hasn't been, well, we can't say easy to have the transition of processes throughout the pandemic, but maybe we were better prepared. The pre-COVID situation was that we had made a major investment on the digital transformation of our processes. Indeed, this transformation had been acknowledged by our users because we have been considered for long years among the more innovative and modern IP offices in the world. And furthermore, we had also innovated greatly in our work environment using a lot of distance work. So a lot of our staff was working from home. So when in the middle of March, we had the lockdown here in Spain, all our staff began to work from home. And we were quite fortunate also because a few weeks before this date, we had completed an important project to modernize our whole infrastructure in IT. And the idea was that each person in our staff had their own laptop, and this allowed the people to work from the home from the first day. They could be safely connected to our system, so we had no service interruption. What were the main challenges we had? First, clearly, we are trained to work from home in a nearly normal manner. But of course, many of our users reported difficulties. So the first thing we did was to reach a decision, as in many other offices, working in outreach, extending deadlines and time limits for our procedures. And we renewed this extension twice to the middle of May. This clearly helped our users, but for all the people managing registry processes, you know that this later at process management level creates delays. So suddenly, when the extension of the time limits end, we have masses of dossiers that we must elaborate on. And this came together with another difficulty. In the first weeks of the pandemic in Spain, we observed a significant fall of up to 20% of requests from brands and designs. After April, particularly after May, we observed a significant increase, so much so that at present we have a rate of requests from brands that is even greater than what we had last year. So the two elements together at a certain point created difficulties to elaborate all this workload. The good news is that in spite of this rather bizarre situation, we managed to manage all this, and we're going to end the year with 8% increase of requests from brands as compared to last year. In design, it's similar to last year, and all service levels published, we promise to our users, are part of the service charter published in our website so that our users can know what to expect in terms of times and quality of our work. All the indicators are green. So we've managed to return to meet all the necessary indicators. So in this first part of my presentation, I have described how we managed our processes during the worst period of the pandemic. So we may conclude we've been able to do so in a rather effective manner. But of course, the pandemic not only means challenges, it also leads to new opportunities. First, this year, we launched the new Office's strategic plan for 2025. And our experience during the pandemic has convinced us further that the goals included in our strategic plan 2025 are good. In this strategic plan, we will proceed to a new digital transformation at the level of user services in the back office by our examiners, and we have a very ambitious program to use AI. We're already using blockchain in part of our registration process. For example, we have a pilot program with some EU national offices for data generally contained in the branch registry using blockchain technology. So all this will lead us to a new and more intense digital transformation. During the pandemic, we also went further in e-communication with users. Over 99% of our requests for design entered in this manner, but we had very old-fashioned things such as the possibility of discussing with us using fax. We eliminated all this and passed all communications to the electronic mode. Another major opportunity we've observed, and we have to make the most of it, and several of our users and the European Commission requested that at a time of crisis such as this, we worked more for small and medium-sized enterprises. So we've accelerated programs we had already foreseen in our strategic plan to particularly contribute so SMEs can consider IP and industrial property protection as a solution to the current crisis. So we've launched this program we called Alias Power per Business, and we have several initiatives there. For example, in our website, we opened a corner with specific information for SMEs, and then we have also initiated help services for SMEs to help IP professionals and who work in a voluntary way, offering pro bono services for SMEs. We are launching, and this will be announced next week, but we'll start in January with this fund with 20 million euros to help SMEs to register their brands and designs, be it in the EU or at national level or regional level in the EU for the Benelux countries. And with this fund, an SME may obtain reimbursement of up to 50% of the fees paid for the registry and reimbursement of up to 75% of the price of what we call the audits to monitor intangibles that might be protected by IP and how to do so in the best way through IP and industrial property.
The final aspect is to launch a specific tool developed specifically to help SMEs. The first tool is what we call Easy Filing, which will probably be launched in January 2021. As you can see, we have made the most of this time in order to launch different projects and programs that we think will help the companies that need it the most, which are SMEs. Now, a different chapter regarding cooperation in the COVID pandemic. We believe that cooperation is very important for a mandate, and we cooperate widely at the European Union and internationally as well. Clearly, it was very important to keep cooperating in these times, especially regarding increasing and improving our search tools that we have. My colleagues have talked about them, Design View and KimView. So we have continued working in this regard. And I would like to specifically mention the IP Key Latin American program, because we have had a great project team in Latin America, and thanks to the amazing cooperation of our colleagues from the region's offices, they are participating in this project, and they have helped us continue working in this regard. Actually, some of us met the other day in a program organized by the project that where we talked about the use of AI by regional offices so that they can provide users with a more efficient service. I would also like to thank ASIPI, because it has also been a very important partner in Latin America and for this project. Thank you for your cooperation, and clearly we know we have your help for other initiatives and projects. Now, what about the future? I think that we have learned quite a few things in these times, and I would like to highlight two major aspects. One has to do with the working environment. Everyone is now talking about a more flexible working system. There are hybrid environments. So there are some people who actually go to the office, others work from home. Also, distance and communication with users is changing. And as some of my colleagues said, this is here to stay. So we can use this new environment as best we can. Then there is also technology. Technology will help us quite a bit. I believe that from our perspective and regarding the strategic plan we have just launched, we have focused on being able to respond more specifically and cater to the specific needs of our users. A large company does not have the same needs as smaller companies, for instance, or we can provide new services to cater to different users' needs. Therefore, we believe that new technologies will be of great help, and we want to benefit from these technologies as much as we can. So I hope that in these few minutes I've been able to share with you our experience during the pandemic. In Europe, we cannot say that the pandemic is over. Actually, we are now again in a difficult situation. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully in 2021, we will be able to go back to a relative normality, although I think that many of the things that we have learned in these last few months are here to stay, and there will not be challenges, but true opportunities. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Andrea. It's very important for ASIPI to be able to work with your project because it is really important for our region and regional offices as well. Now we have our last presenter, William Meredith, WIPO representative. He's a director of the company solutions of the IP office of WIPO. They provide software and support services to more than 85 countries worldwide to help IP offices to improve internal efficiency and quality of service for the registration of IP rights. William previously worked in other roles at WIPO, including PCT, Patent Information and Statistics. Before joining WIPO in 1999, he worked in the private sector and government agencies in New Zealand. William holds a degree in economics as awarded by the London School of Economics.
Thank you, Elisabeth, and thank you also, ASIPI, for the invitation. It's a little bit unique for us to be able to attend this kind of meeting. Normally, we would not have the opportunity to attend, but I think it's one of the features of the new virtual environment that we're able to attend meetings such as this and present our activities. So as Elisabeth said in the introduction, my program provides services to IP offices. We work with nearly 90 countries around the world. We don't provide solutions directly to IP users and IP agents, but we are often behind the IP office, helping them to improve the quality and the cost effectiveness of the services that they provide. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about what we have observed in the offices that we work with and about the programs and the initiatives that we're undertaking to help to adapt to the situation. So as several speakers have said, when the pandemic started, there were several shocks to the system. We had to suddenly move to an environment where we're providing online services and people are working remotely. And there's been changes in the patterns of usage of the IP system. But it seems now that many of these effects will be permanent. We're not going to go back to the days of providing services through paper, on paper filing, and we're not going back to the days where everybody is working in the office. And in the wider economy, I think there's also some changes which will be permanent and which also affect the use of the IP system. So surprisingly, we've seen an increase in the speed of innovation. And I think in Loreta's presentation, she showed that there's actually an increase in filings for trademarks, and we're noticing the same thing in the global IP systems as well. So to adapt to this situation, IP offices need to have a digital transformation strategy, which is what we have been encouraging them to do for at least the last 10 years. Now this becomes essential because they need to maintain business continuity when we have events like the pandemic, responding to the demands from users who now want to have all of their services delivered online. It also improves the quality and efficiency of the delivery of the services, and it will help them to adapt to the changes in the usage patterns and the changes in the users of the IP system. I wanted just to highlight that digital transformation is not an IT project. Of course, it is based on IT services and information technologies, but digital transformation should be seen in at least 3 dimensions. And we have been encouraging IP offices to think in this way for several years now. Most importantly, the regulatory framework. In the offices that have spoken today, fortunately, they were already in a position where the regulatory framework was in place. But in many parts of the world, we see that the regulatory framework is based on paper-based processes, and in some cases requires the office to communicate or to do business on paper. And so a full transformation strategy needs to consider the regulatory framework and inverse that, so that perhaps online services become the preferred option and paper becomes a backup option. There's also opportunities in the operational area, as some of the speakers have highlighted, to change business processes so that they're more efficient, more service-oriented and more customer-focused. So what do we provide in our program? We provide a full suite of business applications to help the IP offices to become fully digitized, fully paperless and fully online. The core service, in the core product in our services is the iPad system, which is the Industrial Property Administration System. So this is the back office system which helps offices to automate the processing of applications for patents, trademarks and designs. So all the major IP rights. And we also can support other IP rights like business names, trade names, and so on, and even copyright if necessary. So this is a fully paperless processing system. It also integrates with global IP systems such as PCT, the Madrid system for trademarks, the Hague system for industrial designs, and with WIPO standards and classification systems so that offices are always operating on the latest versions of the classifications. In the last 5 years, we've also added the online services, so the 2 components, WIPO File and WIPO Publish. WIPO Publish is the system which helps offices to disseminate all of their IP information electronically. So it provides a search system, but it also provides for the ability to do legal publication online to remove the need for printing paper gazettes or other forms of legal publication. And then probably the most important one is the WIPO File system, which provides online filing services, again for patents, trademarks and designs. This product has been rather difficult to create because the systems in every country are different. So in particular, regulatory systems, which may require digital signatures or other e-commerce regulations that need to be followed. Payment systems are different in every country. Identification systems for users and agents may be different in every country. So it was quite difficult to produce a product which could be used in many countries. But we now have this operating in about 12 countries. And the timing was perfect for the beginning of the pandemic because at the end of March, we had offices contacting us already saying that we urgently need to implement this. And so, for example, the IP office in Trinidad and Tobago, at the end of March, they were able to implement the WIPO File project, and they we're able to continue doing business fully online with remote working, thanks to that. And this is one of the products which we will be developing the most in the future, because we want to turn it into a full online services delivery platform. So that means that it's not just for filing transactions, but also for, not just for filing new applications, but also for filing renewals and assignments, to do portfolio management so that an agent can see their complete portfolio of applications at the office, and see the legal status of those actions and take any necessary actions or receive notifications. So just some quick statistics. As I said, we work with, now I think it's 87 countries worldwide. 19 of those are in Latin America and Caribbean. We have almost every functional IP office in the Caribbean, so 10 countries in that region, and 9 offices in Latin America, including the 3 offices who've spoken today, but also others such as Nicaragua, Uruguay, Paraguay, Cuba, and some others. Just briefly, the way we work is that we work directly with the IP offices. We are demand-driven, which means that we respond to the needs of the offices. We have a project management framework, which we follow for all of our projects, which goes through a phase of assessment, assignment of resources, careful project planning, and project implementation. WIPO is not a funding agency, and so resources are always an issue in the projects, and we need to have a cooperative project model with the offices to make sure that all of the necessary resources are made available. Project implementation typically takes 6 months to 1 year, but can take 2 to 3 years depending on the readiness of the office and the complexity of the project. And finally, we provide continuous support and knowledge transfer. Sometimes when I am audited, I am asked what our exit strategy is, and I have to reply that we don't have one because we never leave. We continue to support the offices long term. So just to conclude, some of the things which we think are priorities for the future and the new normal way of working. So the digital registry is something which offices need to implement, so they go to fully paperless processing and fully automated workflows. The 3 offices who spoke today have already achieved that level, but many of the offices we work with are still working with paper-based registries. Offices need to go to fully online services, which means more than just online filing, but making all of their services available online, including legal publication, legal registers, and so on. And finally, there's opportunities as well, once we have digitized registers, to take much better advantage of new technologies. And 3, which I think should be considered by IP officers, are firstly data analytics. There's a lot more work that we can do with understanding who users are and who the customers are and their needs and their usage patterns and so on by using data analytics and data science techniques. And I think this would help a lot to understand the users better and to improve service delivery. Cloud infrastructure is something which is happening in all industries globally, and it has the potential to vastly reduce costs and improve service delivery, and to make new kinds of services, such as use of AI and data analytics, much more cost-effective and much more accessible, even to small IP offices. And finally, appropriate use of AI, as some of the speakers have said already. There's a lot of opportunities to use AI in the IP domain, especially in the area of classification and search tools. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Sir William. Bueno, gracias a todos.
Thank you all for your most interesting presentations and for sharing this with ASIPI. This is very important information and very good initiatives during the pandemic and for the future. This exchange of experience in WIPO and in the regional offices are extremely important. Now, I will hand the floor to our secretary because he will tell us the questions made from the audience. Yes, good morning and afternoon to all. Thank you for your presentations. We have only 8 minutes for questions. I would have liked to make one to each, but as you know, the system will shut us out in 9 minutes. So, first topic that always arises in Latin America when implementing these systems, these online systems, is that Latin America is characterized by being very formalist in the requirements at documentation level in the different offices. So my question is for Loreto or Fabiola. How did you overcome this issue regarding the formal requirements? Do the users keep their original documents in the offices and only work with digital documents? And if there's a problem, you request the originals to check something? For any of you, Fabiola or Loreto? Okay, thank you for your question, Luis. Proxies and other documents attached in the request, and particularly proxies, are in a repository, and we want the original also. And this was an issue during the pandemic, so we became more flexible in compliance with the law and all the treaties signed. So it's accompanied at digital level, but we can always request the originals to check in case there are doubts or concerns in any presentation. But in Chile, we have the single code or anti-NATI code registry. So the person presenting the documentation has this code allowing traceability or a third party to conduct traceability if there's a forgery of documents or things of the sort, and the person is accountable. This is made clear from the start. This is a criminal accountability if there is any forgery. That was the measure we took because, of course, it was a headache for national users because they couldn't hand the proxy in hard copy. So this was flexibilized, and this operation has been working for 2-3 months. But, of course, there was an accumulation generating observations. It was decompressed. We absorbed it. And now we're accepting this new modality with a single code in Chile. Each individual has one. The INAPI code also allows traceability and accountability. Thank you. Well, I could add on briefly with our experience in Costa Rica. Indeed, we are very formal. That is why the WIPO file system facilitated by WIPO took longer to implement because we developed an accessory to validate our electronic advanced signature we use in Costa Rica. It's a unique signature. There's a code for it. So we ask people to present the requests and all the accompanying documents, even the proxy in a PDF document, and all with a digital signature that authentifies the documentation contributed. And for this, in this way, we have solved our issue. So since September, when we started with this via WIPO files, we introduced this possibility. So documents are authenticated by the person presenting them because we use the electronic signature that cannot be repeated. and can be reported. So we guarantee the authenticity of each and every document in the PDF format. Well, further detail. The solution we mentioned is for users that didn't have the advanced electronic signature. There's been a significant increase of requests of nano producers or physical persons that are in this pandemic situation. That is why there were many documents with the advanced electronic signature with all the necessary requirements. Of course, it does exist, but in cases where this isn't present, we are more flexible. That was an extra detail, like Fabiola said. Thank you so much, Loreto. Well, unfortunately, we only have 4 minutes left for Elisabeth to close. We would have liked to make further questions. So we need an extra panel because I think it's very interesting and I think it's good for other offices to experience what we have gone through. I was struck by the fact that 3 other offices represented here, Brazil, Chile, Costa Rica, in Latin America, use the e-pass. And I think that in a future discussion, we would like to know how difficult was it to implement it. Maybe next year we could have something of the sort. Elisabeth, the floor is yours. Thank you, Luis. Indeed, we need a second part of this panel. There's much to discuss, many questions and further information to share. Well, before closing, I want to ratify the ASIPI commitment to continue working, contributing with all the IP offices in the region. This sort of meetings with exchange of experiences are extremely important, both for the offices and for us. And together we'll do better. As I always say, together we are better. Thank you all once again for being present. Thank you to the audience for being with us in this very important panel. All the best. Good 2021. Thank you.